Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. We are going to embark upon almost the last workshop that we've got for this 2023 grants round. And you don't have to worry about tomorrow's because that's for program support. Today, we're doing completing the artist support grant application. And I'd like to welcome and introduce to you my colleague, Chloe Smith.
Hello, happy to be here today. Like Anne mentioned, I work alongside Anne at RAC as a grants and programs manager. And so I'm looking forward to going through our PowerPoint with you guys today.
Exactly. And also Lee Winter. Lee, do you want to say hello?
Hi everyone.
And you've probably been emailing Chloe or Lee or me. And so these are the faces behind the voices or behind the emails. Before we get started, wanted to let you know that we'll take questions. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat as we go. And we'll try to get to as many of those as we possibly can. At the end of this presentation, you'll receive a brief anonymous Zoom survey. So please take a minute to fill that out. We want to know what you're learning from this, how we can improve, etc. And the recording from this will be available on the RAC website a little bit later this week. The marketing and communications team has been very quick about getting those up, so I would imagine they could be up by tomorrow, but if not, wait a couple of days and we'll get there. So our priorities, I'm ready to move on to that one. So our mission as the leading, and let me start by saying, if you've been to a lot of our workshops online, we're going over many of the same things at the beginning, and I'm hoping that so you can either tune out or tune in and maybe you'll hear something in a new way. And then we'll get to the meat of the presentation a little bit later. But we think it's important to hearken back to our mission and vision and our values so that it gives you an idea of where we are and really what we want to see in an application and how what you're doing aligns with what the Regional Arts Commission is doing in terms of our granting. So our mission, as the leading public catalyst for arts and culture in St. Louis, the Regional Arts Commission leverages the power of creativity to strengthen and enrich our community. RAC envisions a full creative life for every St. Louisian, St. Louis as a growing and captivating arts and culture destination, a community rich with opportunities and resources that promote and sustain artists.
RAC's guiding principles are that we invest in the region's arts and culture through our grants, programs, and special initiatives. We believe in diversity, racial equity, accessibility, and inclusion. We build partnerships that strengthen our community. We are passionate champions that support and recognize artists. And finally, we believe every child deserves a well-rounded education that includes the arts.
Our core values embody our culture, spirit, and dedication to living our mission. They keep us grounded and help us make good decisions about everything we do. We are passionate champions for arts and culture. We are accountable stewards of the public trust. We are committed to practices that promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We are socially and civically engaged community catalysts, and we are servant leaders.
RAC's mission, vision, guiding principles, and core values are a balance between our passion and interest, as well as the needs of our community. The Grants Committee and Grants team are working to be sure our new grant cycle reflects our mission, vision, principles, and core values, which helps to ensure that our process runs smoothly or as smoothly as possible.
We're doing the best we can. So we're going to move on now to what is artist support? And you've probably taken a look at our guidelines. So RAC's Artist Support Grant serves as funding for the career advancement of individual artists or artist collectives. This grant provides direct funds for an individual artist or artist collective projects, needs, or creative opportunities in all artistic disciplines. Direct support enables diverse audiences, diverse artists of all disciplines to advance their careers and complete creative projects. It is designed to be flexible and accessible and to encourage creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustained commitment to artistic work. Grant funds may be designated for, but not limited to, equipment and materials, rental space, arts-related travel, conference fees, project completion, salaries, professional and artistic development, training, and other resources for an individual artist or artist collective of all disciplines. Those requests can be between $1,000 and $7,500.
And now I'll go through the artist support grant eligibility requirements. So we do have an age requirement, which requires that the artist is 19 years or older, and this applies to all artists in an artist collective as well. Non-graduate student requirement, we require that the artist is not enrolled as a full-time undergraduate student. There's a local focus requirement, meaning that the artist is a current resident of St. Louis City or County and has maintained primary residence in St. Louis City or County for at least 1 year, and we will require verifiable documentation there. And then another of the eligibility requirements is current work. We ask that in the past 3 years, the artist has created and presented their own original works to the public or performed for the public, and will require verifiable documentation there as well. And then for the artist collective, at least one of the artists has created and presented their own original works in the past 3 years, and the collective has created or presented for at least 1 year, and will require verifiable documentation with that as well. And then just a note that all of the requirements apply to individuals applying for the grant, as well as members of an artist collective.
And I'll go over the disciplines. So that's a wide range there, and I'm sure you fit into one or more of these. Arts education, arts services, dance, design, folk and traditional arts, literary arts, media arts, music, musical theater, opera, presenting and multidisciplinary works, theater arts, visual arts, social practice, and there's always that great catchphrase, other.
And now I'll do a little overview of the application. So when you get into the application, you'll be asked for some general information. This will be email, phone, your full legal name. Then we'll ask for the artistic essentials, which will be 3 questions. And you'll be asked that you upload your artist statement as a response to these questions. There will be 3 community benefit questions. And then finally, our last section is capacity and sustainability, where there will also be 3 questions. And then you'll have a required upload of your budget and your CV or resume. And just note that these are 3 questions in 3 sections, so that's 9 questions total.
Great. Now on to the application questions. If you've taken a look at the grants guidelines, you'll see that rubric in there, and we're going to go through this complete rubric. So there are 9 questions on the application. Every narrative part of a question allows for a 300-word maximum. Now, that might seem like a lot, but when you think about it, it's actually, if you were to do a double-spaced Word document in a 12-point font, such as Times New Roman or Arial, that would be about 1/3 of a page. And that should be enough for you to answer concisely and precisely what you have in mind, and a good way for you to reflect upon your practice and your work and what you're proposing. Excuse me. So we hope that's enough room. You do not need to go up to that 300 words. If you can explain very clearly what you're up to in 150 words or 200 words, please do that. Don't feel like you have to go to 300, but you do have that 300 word limit. So we have the 3 criteria, as you well know, and that the first criteria is cultural and artistic essentials, which will account for 40%. When the raters are rating your work, that'll be 40% of it. And what we mean by that is a culturally and artistically significant practice or work that contributes to the creative life of the artist and ultimately to St. Louis. So question number one, what we're asking for are your essentials. We want you to provide an overview of your grant request and indicate if the funds will be used for a personal need to support your artistic practice or a public project. We have plenty of people, artists, asking us if they have to do a specific thing. You can, or you could just ask for money to support your practice, which means possibly your studio space or rehearsal space or what it takes to really materials, really things to further your practice and to do that work. And the way that we will not judge, but review that question, we want you to do that middle column there, that review criteria. So think about these as you're providing that overview of your grant request and as you're indicating what you're going to use those funds for. So that this question would include clear plans such as the location, dates, frequency as applicable, the who, what, when, where, and why of what you're requesting. It will also address how your work contributes to your artistic practice, skills, and craft. It will also think about how your work contributes to innovation and new thinking in your art form and the wider culture. And you can also indicate, and we really want you to do this, how the grant funds will be used. The upload for this question is your artist statement. If you missed that workshop, that is available online on our RAC website, and you can take a look at that if you don't quite understand an artist statement. And you have a choice there of either uploading a 90-second video of your artist statement or a one-page PDF.
Great, and I'll move on to the second question, which is also under the review criteria, cultural and/or artistic essentials. So this question addresses artistic significance and again has the 300-word maximum. And so we'll ask that you explain the artistic intention of your work and/or practice. And the review criteria we're really looking for you to address here, or under the review criteria column that we're looking for you to address, is that you demonstrate artistic significance and the project is relevant to the artistic field and/or the arts and culture sector. And then also that work samples indicate alignment with what is outlined in the application, and you'll upload those work samples later in the application.
Question number 3 is the last one in the cultural and/or artistic essentials of the 9 questions, these 3. And the application question asks for your goals. And what we mean by that, we want you to identify and explain your goals, objectives, and outcomes. And we really want to know, what does success look like for you as an artist or for your project that you're trying to request money for. If you need help figuring out how to create your goals, objectives, and outcomes, I suggest going back and looking at the slide deck or the video from what we did when we said how to create your narrative for your project. We want your goals, objectives, and outcomes to be realistic and relative to the project or need and the planned execution of that project or need. And we also would like you to consider and articulate documentation and dissemination of the work if that's applicable to what you're proposing.
Perfect. We'll move on to our 4th question, which is the first question in the community benefit section of the application, which is weighted at 30%. For community benefit, that means that the artist demonstrates broad community benefit with a practice or work that contributes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the community. The 4th question addresses audience, and again, that is a 300-word maximum. We'll ask, who is your community or intended audience? If you are applying to fund an artist need that is not public-facing, please address how having that need met or funded will affect your community contribution as an artist. When responding to this question, feel free to share how your work impacts people beyond the arts and culture community. So the review criteria we're looking to address here is that the intended audience is clearly defined. We know who you are targeting as your audience. Direct So that's a public project, or indirect, which would be an artist's need like supplies or studio space. Contributions to the community are articulated. So we know whether you're having a direct impact or contribution or an indirect indirect impact or contribution. And then finally, understanding of the community or market is indicated.
Great. And this might seem like the hardest part of the application perhaps, but we understand that you are an artist who lives in community, and however you choose to define that will work. The next question in the community benefit is question number 5, and that's the DEIA question, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility question. And that question is posed this way: how do you and or your practice or your work contribute to diversity, equity, inclusion, and or accessibility of neighborhoods, communities, or the entire St. Louis region? And that review criteria creates and presents art that represents the telling of stories of diverse populations, if that applies, provides equitable opportunities to create and participate, if that applies, and activities or artwork and the locations where they are provided are intentionally accessible to all people, if that applies. So I think that a period of reflection for yourself as you create the answer to this question is really important.
And then our final question under community engagement is community benefit is question number 6, which is about community engagement. We'll ask, how is the work relevant to the selected community or location? Do you have community partners in this work, official or unofficial, and who are they? And in what ways do these partners inform your work? We'll ask that you address efforts that you have in place to develop meaningful collaborations with diverse groups to expand artistic practice, if that is applicable. Addresses intersection between we'll ask that you address the intersection between artistic intention and community concerns or interest. We'll ask that you demonstrate community participation or connection, if applicable. And then finally, that you specify community partnerships that increase engagement, if applicable.
Question number 7. So this falls into the bucket of capacity and sustainability, and this is a 30% weighting. And what we mean by that is an artist that intentionally plans for their artistic practice, capacity, and sustainability. And that first question is about your budget and your budget narrative. We ask that you upload your project need budget and provide a budget narrative explaining expenses and revenues. Your budget narrative, really what that does is it explains how the costs in your budget were estimated, and it justifies the need for that cost. When you get to this part of the application, there is a budget template that you will find on the website, and you can download that template in either a PDF document or an Excel document. It's your choice. If you choose that PDF, there's a place in there where you can click insert text, and you can do it that way. And I think most of you are probably familiar with an Excel document. So whatever's easy for you to upload into our application is the best way for you to do that. If you have questions about any of that, don't hesitate to email any of the 3 of us, and we will do what we can to answer your questions. The review criteria for the budget and the budget narrative. We want to make sure that you have a realistic and balanced budget and a clear budget narrative. Let me remind you that your budget must be balanced. So your income must equal your expenses. The budget should be appropriate for the scope of what you are proposing. And the budget indicates diverse revenue streams, if that's applicable. You do not have to have matching funds to apply to us at all, but we do find it's helpful for you to have diverse revenue. We also, sometimes it's a smart idea to have a contingency plan to support your project completion. And that could be either And you don't have to outline this so much in your justification, but just be ready for it. Sometimes people don't, maybe you won't get a grant that you're applying for, or maybe the rehearsal space that you're trying to get isn't right there. So have those contingency plans in place and be thinking about what happens if things don't quite work out.
Great. So the eighth and second question in capacity and sustainability is about artist capacity. We'll ask that you describe your ability to carry out the proposed project or your regular practice based on factors such as resources involved or outlined and your qualifications. We'll ask that you'll want to address a clear and ongoing commitment to planning, goal setting, and promotions, if applicable. And you'll want to describe a connection to the artist to your earlier work, or represents an intentional shift from what you have done in the past, as indicated either in your artist statement or your resume or CV.
And the last question in the application and also in the capacity and sustainability section, we ask that you provide a project or practice growth and development statement. That statement complements what is known about the project or the need that you're requesting support for and the information provided in the budget. We also ask that the applicant describe how the RAC grant will be a catalyst for artistic and/or professional growth. All right, some FAQs, some frequently asked questions.
Perfect. I'll start with these first general questions. What is the total dollar amount available for artist support grants in 2023?
RAC will provide up to $1 million in artist support grants in 2023.
Awesome. How many artist support grants will be made in 2023?
That depends on the number of applications that are submitted. So if we have $1 million and we receive, I don't know, 600 applications, which I don't think we'll receive that many, but I think we'll receive more than we did last year.
How many applications are typically submitted each year?
You know, it's hard to say, but in 2022, we received 204 applications from artists for artist support grants, and 169 of those were eligible, which means that 35 were ineligible. So make sure that you take a solid look at that eligibility, those eligibility requirements, and that you provide the documents that we need to prove that your eligibility is in alignment with us. And then last year, 85 grants were made. Out of those 204 applications, the 169 eligible, so 85. But I will also tell you that this year, the maximum award is $7,500, and last year it was $5,000. So we've got to cut that pie just a little bit. There'll be bigger chunks of pie, but there'll be less.
Great. And then, Anne, let's say I do not have a specific project in mind, more than I need the funds for maintenance and supplies to continue to create. Does this mean that I'm still eligible?
Absolutely. Please ask us if you don't have a specific project in mind. We're still interested in your practice and how we can support that practice. So please answer the questions as best you can in the application, and hopefully we'll be able to funnel some money in a grant your way. The next bucket of questions that we receive a lot are timeline questions. So what is the final deadline for artist support applications, Chloe?
Yeah, so the final deadline will be Monday, March 27th.
And that's at midnight. So that portal
Yes.
will be open until midnight for you late night birds. Oh, when will we be notified whether or not an artist support grant has been approved?
Yeah, you will receive your grant award notification and we'll have grant award announcements, most likely on our social media or website, either June 8th or 9th, which is a Thursday or Friday, June 8th or 9th.
And then another question about timelines. I am applying for a specific artist support program. What if I incur costs before the July 1, 2023 timeline? Chloe, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, so I would say that costs incurred before the timeline are not eligible for funding. So your costs must be incurred during our timeline, our grants program timeline, which would be July 1st, 2023 through June 30th of 2024.
Great.
And then this is a pre-application process question that we've been getting a lot of. So is there a pre-application process for artist support grants?
Yes, and that's optional. So if you would like to receive feedback from the RAC grants team on your application, you will need to submit your application by midnight on Monday, February the 20th, and that's a week from today. So you have a week to get that together and submit it to us through the regular channels, and we will review that application and get feedback to you between February the 27th and March the 17th. And March the 17th is 10 days before that final deadline. So if you would like that, please, 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 by all means, do submit a pre-application. The next set of questions, and we may be getting more of these, but is about the Artist Collective, which we haven't done before. And that question is it possible to apply for an artist support grant as an artist and as part of a collective?
Yeah, so we were saying that no, you needed to be either applying for an artist support grant or applying as part of a collective. We do ask that you reach out to us just so we can learn a little bit more if you are applying under different disciplines. But currently, you can only apply for an artist support grant as an individual or as a part of a collective, not both. Anne, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, not right now, but if you have questions about the Artist Collective, please, 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 either hit us up in the Q&As today or send us an email.
Yes.
This is really for groups, such as last year we had, we thought it was important to include an artist collective because sometimes there's a band that wants to apply as a group, or a collective of individual artists that are sharing studio space, and we want to make sure that we can support them as well. We get a lot of questions about the budget and the budget template in particular. And one question is, oh, I'm sorry, Chloe, you were supposed to ask this question.
That's okay. I'm sure you'll be happy to answer it, Anne. Is it possible to add or delete lines and categories in the budget templates?
The answer is yes. In the Excel form, it's probably very easy to make it your own and to add and delete those lines so that it just really looks like that template was made just for you. And it's the same way in the PDF as well. The other thing you could do is you could take that budget template and put it in a Word document or a Google Sheet if that works for you, and then change it into a PDF when you upload it into the portal. Does that make sense, Chloe?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that's good. And I mean, if you have any issues filling it out through a PDF, you don't have to fill in every line. Know that you can leave lines blank if there's no cost incurred there.
Okay, and then we also get questions about the artist support uploads. And one is, what is a CV? Chloe, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, and you might have to help me with the pronunciation because it's Latin, right? It's circumvite or vitae?
Curriculum vitae, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's essentially a resume. It'll allow you to kind of explain when you've performed and where you've presented your works.
And a lot of times I think people in academia are more familiar with what a CV is because it's a full history of your credentials. The length of it is variable. And in contrast, a resume presents a concise pictures of your skills and qualifications for a specific position. So that's just a little bit of the difference. And then the other question that we get is, how many years back should a CV or resume go? And
you might be a better answer for this one because I would think it could be unlimited.
It could be unlimited, but you don't also want to take up too much of a reviewer's time. So I would say to go back perhaps 10 years at the most, but I would also suggest that you really highlight the most important things that
Yes.
you feel that you've done. So include those things and don't limit yourself.
Yeah.
But also don't make it 50 pages.
Yeah, because they will not review all of that. Unfortunately, they do not have the time. And then finally, our contact information for any technical questions regarding accessing the application, please email ms_racstl_grantmaking@blackbaud.com. Or if you have process questions or just questions in general about the guidelines or the application itself, please reach out to Ann and I, and we'll leave this slide up with our emails on it while we go through the questions in the Q&A. So if you've had a question, please feel free to submit it through the Q&A, and we'll begin to answer those live now.
Yeah, and if you think Chloe or I are too mean to answer your questions, you can also email Lee at grants@racstl.org. She's much nicer than either of us.
So true, so true.
All right, now we're going to take your questions.
Awesome.
Okay, so Sakanya said, if the budget is higher than $7,500 and I am applying to other grants as well, can I mention that in the comments? Absolutely, Sukanya. I would go ahead and make your complete budget. Let's say your complete budget is $23,000. And we like to see the whole of that budget, and then to see where that other money is coming from, because that's really demonstrating diverse streams of revenue as well. And we're getting a real idea of the cost of your project. It's important to us to have that sense of things as we move forward at RAC. Janet asked, would you please mention again the items appropriate for the budget? Janet, when you open up that grants template, you're going to get some ideas of what we think are appropriate items for that budget. And that goes from everything to paying yourself. And we don't go into that because you are the best person to determine how much you should get. And also whether it's studio space, whether it's materials and supplies, promotion, help with a website, anything that is enhancing your practice and making you move forward as an artist, if you don't have a specific project to request for. Justin asked, if I'm interested in taking advantage of the pre-application option, should I complete the application in full and submit as I normally would, or reach out via email to initiate the review? No, you'll do that all in the portal, all online, the same way. Just act like you're submitting your application. And then if we have feedback, we'll be able, if we give you that feedback before March the 17th, which is when we need to give it to you, way before then, you'll have the opportunity to go back into that portal and to adjust and revise your application until the 27th of March.
Yeah, and you won't have to start anew after you've submitted your application. So after you submit it, it'll come back to us, and we'll be able to give you just kind of some feedback, and then we'll send the application back to you. And like Ann said, you can make edits from there. You don't have to start over.
That's right. Lisa asks, can I apply for a grant to provide an after-school program for an underserved inner-city school who can't afford a full-time drama teacher? Interesting question, Lisa. I think that you really need to approach the application as an individual artist and talk about your qualifications for doing that and the community who will benefit from that, rather than the perspective of the school. Because right now we're not funding schools in the program support area. So I would definitely do that from the perspective of that artist and about how it enhances your practice. Cameron asks, I'm a director looking to direct a staged reading of a local writer's work. Should I submit CVs and samples of both our work, even though I am the sole applicant for the artist grant? No, If you're not doing an artist collective for that, Cameron, I think you should just do your CV. And then if you are paying those people out of that bucket of money that you're getting, that you hope to get from RAC, then I don't think you need to submit the CVs and samples of the other artist work.
I can read this one, Anne. I am an artist who is also a founder of an arts organization. Can I apply as an individual artist for the artist support grant while I'm also applying for the program support grant for my organization?
That's a sticky one. I'm going to say no. And Chloe, if you disagree with me, let's have that discussion. But if you agree with me, and if you want to email one or both of us, please do, and we can have a further discussion about this.
Looks like that's the end of our questions. We'll give it another minute for them to come through. And of course, if we did not answer your question live, or if you're looking for more information, please reach out and email us. We're here to help.
Absolutely. And you may have questions once you get into that portal too.
Yeah.
And please, if you're planning on applying for the pre-application, please make it the best application you possibly can, and fill in all the blanks, so that we can give you some solid feedback to submit a better proposal, if that's possible, at the end of March. All right, it looks like we've answered the questions. We hope this was helpful. Fill out the survey, because we don't want to not be helpful as we go through this, and best wishes with your applications.
Yeah, good luck, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today.
We appreciate it. Thanks a million.
All right.
Is there one? Oh, that was
Bye.
Tanya saying thanks. Bye.